Okay, so what did you miss? Gameplay looked, and this is just what it reminds me of. Obviously, it's a roguelike because one, they said it, but two, it's like you go run this shit over here, and the further in you get, the more stuff that you can get to increase your card abilities, and you can get like overall like general upgrades and increases which help round out your build, right? That's literally like any roguelike, like um you could look at Hades, Slay the Spire, Astral Ascent. I mean, you name it. If it's a roguelike, it probably does the same thing. I don't think that looks too terrible. The card system can be a little bit interesting. It reminds me, and although I've never played the game, it reminds me of this game that starts with an M. It looked relatively similar to Morimen's in the sense of Morimen's kind of takes a different approach with how their gameplay looks. Theirs looks kind of like AL in the sense of like you're going and like you're picking a tile and then you just like go in, you're on a map and you just like fight that one thing in front of you, and you just kind of like progress that way. This one like has the whole planet thing. Like, okay, that's cool. Mm, but as far as like their like card usage, it reminds me of Morimen's. Like from first glance, obviously, like I didn't play Morimen's and I haven't played Chaos Zero Nightmare, but just from like the look of it, that's what it kind of reminds me of. I think the aesthetic of it is very well done, and I think it plays like a really good part of like the story and how the story looks. And so I mean, I think it looks really good. The combat doesn't look like the combat has the potential of being crazy, but I think it just depends on like what character you have and what the cards that they have do. Another game that it reminds me of, I've not played this game, is Darkest Dungeon, because they were like, you have HP, but like every character has like some kind of trauma. And so like once you get to a certain threshold, like you can like induce the trauma that you have. And then when you turn around and like are in that little threshold, it can enable you to use your like ultimate ability. I don't remember what he called it, but you can use your ult because it's so much cheaper. So sometimes being on that threshold, like in that trauma threshold area, whatever it was called, like can be a good thing that helps swing the tides of your fight. So it's like, I feel like just from what I've seen from Darkest Dungeon, managing like being at good HP and like good mental state versus being at like low HP and like that trauma area and like being able to juggle between the two. But then like the funny thing is like I also think that it has like Umamusume stuff in it as well, because just like in Uma, how tell me where the difference is. I run a scenario, okay, just like I do the little planet thing, right? And then I take my progression, I take my veteran Uma that I run from the scenario, and then I take it to the story, which for them is their story. For us, it's PvP, right? And so it's like kind of has a couple of like Uma elements in it as well. I mean, to some degree, you could argue like, oh yeah, the whole thing about getting cards and then upgrading those cards like through your run and it changes, you know, your synergies and da 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 da. You could just say support cards give you certain skills, changing those and then giving me those skills in my career run make a different synergy, whatever. I think that's a little bit more of a stretch, but you could say that. But I think that's just more of like the typical roguelike element. I mean, I think at the end of the day, I think it looks like a decent game. And I'll definitely try it. If not, just for like a week. But will I stick with it? I don't know. It just depends on the gameplay and how it feels. And then they were talking about like season stuff, which, funnily enough, like kind of reminds me of like, you could say that it's kind of like the scenarios in Uma, where it's like you're gonna get certain things from this particular season and like certain upgrades and certain, you know, abilities and da da da. But then I can take that and still play with it and progress my story with it, right? And so like it's kind of the same, relatively the same, like, you know, just kind of piece the puzzles that I'm showing you. It's like if they give us the Ura finale and then we get the next one, right? We're going to have like different skills given to us through there. We're going to have different thresholds we can reach in the second scenario we get in Uma. And that's kind of like how I see the same thing, like with the way they were mentioned, they're like galaxy season thingies, where it's like, yeah, we're gonna start out with this season, and like for this amount of time you can use the stuff here to go do these other things. And then like there's another game mode that's also a seasonal time that can be like pretty unique depending on that season. So like I think that's the majority of what you missed. Jams, say anything about PvP? Did they say anything about PvP? No, they did not. They only mentioned like what I had mentioned. They quite a bit of it was story based. Like they were talking about story stuff too. But they didn't say anything about PvP. The main two like things that they were talking about was like the little roguelike game mode, and they were like, yeah, it could take as little as 5 minutes or over 15 minutes depending on how like far and how good of a run you have. And then it's like you take that, you take whatever, you know, progress of a character, let's just call it a fucking veteran Uma, you take that and then you go play their story mode and you prog through the story mode as much as you can. And then you say, okay, well now I go back over here and I redo this whole thing and I go through that again and I go further into it. But then the thing that they showed off was they have different like planets. So it, like to me, I guess it would be like this first planet might have like defensive shit. The next one might be like offensive stuff. The next one might be like support stuff, right? So it's like I'm gonna take certain characters into this one to get good skills for them, take certain characters here for good skills for them, certain characters here for good skills for them, and then I'm gonna take my best one from each one, take them into a team, and run through the story like that. I think that's like low-key how the gameplay loop is gonna be, but like I don't really know. But that was their whole thing. It's like you go do this one to push story, you take story to come back over here, and it's like that little juggle. But it wasn't terrible. I think it didn't look bad.